Hey everyone, this is Modern CPA, Profit Points Podcast, and today we're going to talk to Marc Umstead about cybersecurity and the top things that you can do to protect yourself. We are Modern CPA. Our purpose is to provide valuable information to small business owners. On our podcast, Profit Points, we discuss business how-tos, give tax tips, and dig into real-life experiences in the crazy world of running your own business. If you find this podcast helpful, then like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. Welcome, everybody, to our podcast, Profit Points, where we talk to professionals, industry leaders, and small business owners about their journey and what they see in the world of being in business. And today we have Marc Umstead from Plus One Technology. And Marc, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm the president of Plus One Technology. My firm works with small businesses to basically use technology to make their workflow and their business processes better and improve the overall, security and reliability and productivity of their environment. Awesome.
So what size businesses do you work with? Do you work with one person business all the way to larger companies? Like what area?
Yeah. So we work with anybody from, that has one or a handful of employees up to, what they call a co-managed environment where we're working with internal staff for companies that have, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people.
Wow.
Maybe we're providing just some services. But yeah, we really run the gamut. I would say we focus on firms that are, between 10 and 50 employees is kind of where, most people, a lot of firms fall, but,
okay.
We work with anybody.
That's so great. So what brought you to start Plus One Technology? Like, what is your background? What found you, going into business for yourself?
Sure. So, it's kind of weird. I grew up being 40. I kind of grew up when computers grew up. So I started when I was young, working for an insurance firm, logging loans on pieces of paper, writing down, the information, when it was filed and people would then, ask for, well, we need the information on Bob Smith from 4 years ago. Can you go look through a box of, 1,000 pieces of paper and find his information? And then I was just like, there's gotta be a better way to do this. So, so that kind of started, where really, I'm not, the most technical person out there. I don't know everything when it comes to technology, but, I am more of a workflow business process person. So It's about taking technology and actually making your workflow better, not worse. So I would, I kind of developed initially an Excel document to store all this information to easily find it. And then, that kind of grew into a database. And then, we kind of put everything in the company in this database to run it. So I growing up with, how do we make business process better, workflow better? How do you make people work faster, more efficiently, is really where, I kind of grew up in technology, not, coding software and all that kind of stuff, but, just trying to improve the business process using technology. So then after that, I went to college for 4 years. I was in what they call management information systems, which is kind of a blend of computer science and business administration. And after that, I just got an opportunity. My business started in 2005. So there was a guy that had kind of a small IT company and he was essentially just leaving. So, I got a loan for $10,000 and, open my business. I would not recommend doing that, by the way. I would find a different way to do it other
scary,
than that.
Wasn't it?
Don't open up with no customers, no cash flow or anything and have $10,000 and try to make it work. But it's definitely a journey. But that was, how I started. So it's 2022. So that's 17 years now. And, we're still trying to work on those same principles, right? So use technology to make people's, workflow better. I think a lot of people, focus so much on just security or you have to get this, the goal really now, especially with the labor market, the way it is like, if you can't get new people, let's make the people that we have work as best as they possibly can.
That's great. That's a great outlook. And I think a lot of small businesses really could use that within their business because we don't have a lot of resources. And so if you can, use what you can that's available to you without taking up other types of resources, whether it's people's time, whether it's your time as the business owner or your money, if you can make things work a little smoother and still accomplish the same thing, that's the goal.
I always tell people like there is so many more things that are less expensive than people.
Especially now with technology, there's so much automation that can happen.
There's so many technology tools, so many things you can do to just make the existing people work faster, better, more proficient, however you want to say it. So you don't need, you can wait, a year or something to get that next person. If you can kind of just consolidate your time and do what you need to do and get rid of as many, mundane, repetitive tasks, like anything you can automate, like you need to do it or make your, just your time more efficient when it comes to scheduling or whatever, really work on those things before you're just like, well, I need to hire somebody to do this,
I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Like, we need another person. We need another person. And then all their overhead is like any extra money that they had is now spent out.
Right.
And they're not really,
unless that person, if you don't have 40 hours worth of work for that person, like, you shouldn't be hiring them because it'll just kill your, if you try to grow too fast with, ancillary people doing, things because you don't want to do them. It doesn't, it'll kill the business quicker than anything else.
So many more applications and products speak to each other too now than ever before. So you can have these different things talking to each other, and help eliminate some of that overkill with people.
No, that's right. And we always tell people, like, before you buy a tool, make sure it fits like everything you want. Because there's tons of tools out there. There's probably 50 different software companies that do one thing, that you're looking for. So before you just go out, click the first Google ad and buy the thing, that you find first, make sure you find the one that works with all your stuff so that, you're not putting your customer information into 5 different portals because none of them talk to each other. Because that'll just, it'll make your productivity even worse,
and it gets confusing
to do what,
like, what does what, and what do I have to update on this side and that side?
Somebody gets a new phone number or they move and now it takes you an hour to
like,
update
I need
their
an
address
admin
everywhere
assistant to fix all of these things. Exactly. So you had quite a journey then. I mean, going from working for an insurance company and data entry kind of role to, running your own IT company with multiple employees, with lots of clients. And I think being that you're in the small business, you are a small business, you can empathize with the small business owner for sure and have a lot of value to offer them.
Yeah. I mean, we, I always kind of focus on I call it the VAC method, especially when you're in small business, you have to provide value, appreciation for your current customers, and communication is really critical, especially in our business. So, and value doesn't mean like be cheap. It means that your customers need to perceive that what you're providing them is worth more than what they're paying you, regardless of the number. It doesn't really matter what the number is. But if they perceive they're getting more value than what they're paying, that'll create, that culture of, raging fans where you're not only retaining your customers, but you're going to, they're going to help you, get more, And that's why we do a lot on appreciation. Cause I think one thing that, people always hate the Comcast and Verizon method where, let's give the new guy a better deal than, the guy that's been with us for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like people hate that, and we try to not, we use standard pricing that's tiered by employee count for every single person pays the same amount of money. And there's no deal for the new guy, and if anything, some of our clients that are older, maybe get a better deal than a brand new one. So, and I think you just have to, make sure that your existing clients are, know that you appreciate them. I think a lot of small businesses take their current client base for granted because they're like, well, I got them in and they're, I think they're happy.
They're here and they're fine.
Yeah. So just do little, send them a personal email, like every once in a while, just hey, appreciate your, it doesn't need to be some grand gesture, especially if you're in a business that, isn't, we're in a business where, our average client is worth a lot more money. But if you're doing, you're doing pest control or something where, it might be a one-off transaction or something, but at least, send a handwritten note or something, people those types of things. And, it really goes a long way. We started doing like an appreciation campaign 2 years ago, where we send our clients kind of something, every year with a handwritten note that I write myself, which is, it's grueling, but I think it's something that it does make you, the business owner, really kind of, make sure that you're touching base with your client base and stuff. But our referrals went up 3x.
Wow.
Just by doing that, once a year, just sending them out to your existing clients, say, hey, we appreciate, and there's no ask, hey, we appreciate your business. That's it. Don't try to cobble it together with selling them other stuff. Just, make it, kind of and then communication, like in our business, nobody communicates correctly. I would say the number one reason for our success is the ability to communicate, because so many IT companies, they're either just trying to put the fear of God in people, or they can't talk to human beings, which is kind of like an industry problem. I feel like, that I try to, we try to get around, but just even if things aren't going perfectly with right now, the labor shortages, supply chain issues, like there's a lot of projects in a lot of industries that don't go right, whether it's construction or whatever. But if you can be ahead of it with the client and just kind of say, communicate like, hey, it was supposed to be 2 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks because, we didn't get this part or whatever. People are willing to accept like those types of issues if you communicate them with, don't email them the day before you're supposed to be there and be like, well, we're not going to be there because I never got the part 2 weeks ago. That's lack of communication. So it's really critical to just make sure that you are in constant, kind of back and forth with the client, and just kind of keep them up to date of whatever's going on.
Yeah, we hear that a lot in a lot of different industries, and not just yours. Is the more you can communicate, the more you can be out in front of any problems or even good things. I mean, with letting people know what's happening, the better your relationship with those clients.
Yeah. I mean, and we see it, right now, especially in our industry, the news cycle, it's constant. Like, oh my God, this happened, or oh my God, this happened.
Breaking news every
second. A pipeline gets hacked, or this gets hacked, or there all this stuff. So you just kind of, we're kind of in the industry of, everybody calm down. Like what we're doing. This is why you're good. Here are the 10 things that we're doing that help alleviate, that problem, and that goes across the board for any industry, like let your, when there's a news item like that comes out that happens, for your business, you kind of have to, address it with your clients, because you'd rather send an email to everybody than have your phone ring, 30 times the next day with everybody just wanting a reassurance that they're okay. So if you can kind of get ahead of it, plus it reflects better on the company that you're not being reactive, that you're being proactive to, hey, this was out, everybody's going to believe it's, a big problem. So make sure that you're addressing it ahead of time. Not only makes you look better, but it helps, calm your phone and your email box down.
Yeah, I understand that. We deal with that a lot, especially in the last couple of years with all the changes that we've experienced. It has been quite challenging, and the times have changed where, years and years ago before us, people saw each other face to face so much more. And now we don't have that experience with each other. People are busy and, they just don't have the time to, come into our office or whatever. But, communication is still very important in whichever way that people see to communicate. So I know there's so many clients that just want to use text messages. And that's okay to say, hey, I was thinking of you, but maybe not so much for tax law changes. So.
Yeah, you might hit a character limit where 20, it might be hard to read.
20 text messages from your CPA. Not so good. But realistically, the idea is that we're just not in front of each other anymore, as much as we used to be. So we have to. That is a good point that
you bring up. We do see that a lot now. And, it's kind of like meeting people where they want to be, because generationally we see a big difference as to how people communicate. Right. So some people, still want to pick up the phone and talk to you. Some people would rather use email. And then, some of the younger generation would rather text or, we have, a chat feature on your website. And I would say, especially not so much for what we do, but if you're in any kind of like emergency services, like if you're a pest control plumber, like anything like that where people are looking and they need that instant gratification of, I need this done, like I need somebody scheduled to come out. Like you need to make sure that you do all of that, that people can get in touch with you however they want, whenever they want. Because if you're not, the next guy is, and he's going to be the one that gets the business.
Understood. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're seeing with IT. And we had talked a little bit before we started the podcast about some things that people need to be aware of, especially on the IT side and cybersecurity. Tell us a little bit about what your experience is with what's happening right now with some of this.
Sure. So we're kind of seeing a migration from, where last year and the year before, kind of the big, story and worry was a lot of the ransomware stuff, which was all over the news then. And then that has not gone away. I don't want to say that's gone away. But I think as an industry, we've gotten better at providing, protections across the board that really mitigate that risk pretty good. But now we're kind of seeing what they call BEC attacks, business email compromise attacks, which where people are getting into email addresses and kind of just parking themselves and waiting for an opportune moment to kind of get, in between a transaction and really siphon a lot of money.
Okay. So I'm clear. People are going into your email and they're not doing anything. They're just waiting.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep. They'll just sit there and read it. And then what they do is, once they see an opportunity, whether, real estate transaction, you're purchasing something, or they see where at some point somebody might be providing wire instructions for some reason. Then they'll go create another email that might be a character off in the domain name from another person that you're communicating with. They'll copy their email signature, and then they'll create a rule in your email that basically any email from the correct guy goes to, your junk folder or some folder that you're not going to see. And then they just start communicating as that person. And since they've been in your email, they know how that guy talks. They know what's going on with the transaction. So it seems very fluid. And then they'll just, hey, here are the wiring transactions or, whatever. And it's very complicated. Now there is, there's some protections that you can put into place for things like that, but it becomes very hard for the user to kind of descend. It's a complex attack. So if you don't have certain things in place, or if, we really tell people when it comes to wire instructions, you have to be analog. There has to be an analog step, where you're calling somebody on the phone or doing something completely outside of technology to verify that. And that should be a policy in the company. It really has nothing to do with technology. It's just there needs to be an analog step if there's any sort of change to any financial, whether it be a credit card number or whatever, that there be some sort of phone verification and phone from the number you have on file, not the phone number, that may be in that guy, because there's so many ways, don't email the guy, oh, are you sure? So, definitely analog methods, for, wire instructions should be in everybody's policy. And if you can, just get away from doing it completely. Now, obviously, if you're in real estate or, there's obviously businesses that can't, but your policies should have analog steps in them.
Wow.
And you really you should have somebody monitoring those logins. So if you're using, like, most of our clients are on Microsoft 365. So if you're using that, there's security services you can get that monitor those logins to see if anybody else is in your account based on your IP address.
Wow. So they can tell, like, where that person's potentially logging in at. And then if they know that that's not you, or it looks suspicious in some way.
Yeah. So they'll alert you, like, hey, they'll log in from Taiwan, or, and if you're on some of the premium services, you can actually lock those countries out. Just say, we have a list of like 10 countries that it's like no login works. It's just locked. We don't allow logins from certain countries. But, there's a lot of things that small businesses can do that don't cost anything, that you don't have to work with somebody. Turning on 2FA on your email is like a no-brainer.
And just explain what that is real quick. For people
so two factors where you either get the text message on your phone or a phone call, or you set it up with an app on your phone where you got to put a code in. It's annoying. We know nobody likes it, but it's like the best thing you can do to stop those, because it's so hard to get around it. That, a lot of people, the business of cybersecurity is finding easy business, right? It's just like all of us are they're running a small business. So they're just trying to find
illegal.
It's an illegal small business. Unfortunately, it's a successful one. But they're looking for the easy ones. So if you have 2FA on your account, they just go to the next guy, because there's plenty of people out there that don't. They'll just skip you, unless you're like, unless you have nuclear secrets or something where somebody's, really targeting you. The majority of these attacks are people trying to get into 1 million accounts. They don't know who you are.
They don't know who you are.
They don't know what your business is. They don't know how much revenue you are. So all these people are like, well, I'm too small. Nobody's going to target me. Like, nobody's targeting anybody. It's just kind of a broad net.
Everybody's fair game. Basically.
Yeah. So, if you think about it, a guy on the shore just casting a net, whatever fish are in there is the ones he's going after. Right. So if you make your business like less of a soft target, then they just move on and pick the next easy guy.
And so these are really, getting a two-factor
authentication. Yep. There you go.
Don't say that word again. It's easy to turn on in the settings within whatever accounts in order to prevent, someone from just accessing it with the password, I guess, username and password.
Yeah.
Great.
Are there any email services to avoid as a business?
Anything free. You get what you pay for. We go back to value. If you get a free email, you're getting free value, so, any of the carrier provided stuff, Verizon, Comcast, Service, whatever internet provider you have, don't get your email from them. Don't use a free, Gmail.
And we're saying for the business. If you do it for personally,
but whatever.
Still, you could be exposed on the personal side with your personal accounts and things like that. But sometimes people look at this in the business, and because they're using, or they house other people's information as well, they can't expose all their clients. Right?
Yeah. What always gets me is, I'd be very wary of real estate companies that use free email. I see it all the time because, agents are kind of, they're subcontractors and they're just setting it up on their own. And, it's a big problem because you figure out all the information that you're sending to a realtor for a closing a lot of times.
A lot of information.
And if they're on some free email service, your stuff's just floating around on there waiting for some, and, it's your social security, whatever. And that's all just floating out there. For it to be, gobbled up and sold on the dark web for $1 at some point in the future.
Wow. So that leads me to, I think one of the next things was about, the dark web, right? So you had mentioned that you had some things that people could do for themselves you had said something about that to us earlier, but
so you definitely want to go out and there's tons of, we have a service we use. There's tons of services out there that'll monitor your company domain and even your personal, you can even add your personal email to the dark web scans. And then what that'll give you is if your password is leaked, right? So, a couple of years ago, Target got hit, LinkedIn got hit a couple of years ago, Adobe got hit a couple of years ago. So, and they'll tell you the password that's leaked. And then you want to make sure you're not using that password anywhere that, you really should make sure you're not using it at all anywhere now once it's leaked, but especially somewhere where it's meaningful, bank account, credit card, anything that has, information that you wouldn't want to be public. And that goes, we also recommend that people use a password management tool, whether it be Dashlane, Passport. I mean, there's a million of them out there. LastPass.
I've heard that.
That'll enable you to create a complex password, for, every login you have, you can have a unique password. And, that really cuts down on that. If one of your passwords gets leaked, it's just for that then particular vendor and what it is and you can go change it and it makes your life a lot easier than if, where your password gets leaked and it happens to be your password for every login you've had since, 1985, then it's a lot more work.
With their email logins.
Yes. So that is, that's the biggest thing. Like you don't want to make, don't use one password for everything. It's just, it won't end well, because if somebody gets a hold of that, they now have access to your life.
Wow. Yeah. So scary. I'm pretty afraid right now.
And those things are relatively, they're relatively easy, they're pretty easy to use and, they're $20-$30 a year. We're not talking like some exponential, investment to get into these things.
Talk about value though. That's probably heavy value for.
Yeah. I mean, they're so easy to configure. It's kind of like a no brainer. Like I couldn't tell you like what any of my passwords, I don't even know what they are. You go to the browser and you kind of hit the button and it auto populates your password from the thing. And you're all good to go without even having to know, what the password is.
Wow. That's so good. Yeah. And it just puts another layer of protection on you.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about some of the things that people are seeing. I mean, it's all revolves around cybersecurity and being in business. How does that, with insurances and things of that nature, what should be like, what is happening out there with insurances and what are some of the hot points that, people are having to deal with as small business owners in this area?
Sure. So we're, almost every day I get an email from somebody, hey, we're trying to get cyber insurance and here's, a 50 questionnaire you need to fill out for me. We definitely caution people, like, don't lie on those things, be truthful. And if you are truthful and then they come back and say, well, we can't insure you because you don't have this, and this, like, then you gotta, you make up your, you have to make up your mind. Because it's all risk mitigation, right? So the insurance company's trying to mitigate their risk. That's kind of our major business is risk mitigation, for our clients is right. To take, especially highly impactful events that have a higher probability of happening and let's mitigate those first, and then work our way down. So those insurance that, a lot of them now will ask you, do you have 2FA on all your accounts? So you need to make sure you have 2FA. That doesn't cost you anything. So make sure you're doing it. And I would say if you get that application and you don't know the answers and you're not working with an IT company, you need to be. So if you can't answer those questions or you don't even know what the question is, then you need to be talking to somebody else. I mean, for years, kind of companies have cobbled through, a lot of smaller firms have cobbled through IT, whether they're, it's their brother's cousin or,
yes,
I got a college kid who's really interested in IT, like, those types of things. It's too much risk to your business to not have professional, working on your stuff, because it's the one thing where you have to be 100%. If you fail one time over 30 years, that could be the time that you're out of business. So you at least want to, work with somebody. We love everybody to work with us, but there's a ton of there's a ton of managed service providers out there. That you want to work with somebody that can answer those questions for you and walk you through, this is why you need this, because the insurance companies now they're making you prove it. You can't just check all the boxes now and say, yeah, I have this. They're going to ask either for proof from your outside vendor or proof internally that you have it. And some of them now, once you get into higher value, they'll actually do testing to ensure that you do have it. So if you say you have,
even if you say yes, and they'll come back and say, oh, we ran a test on you.
Yeah. And you don't.
Not so much.
I mean, it's the same thing, you saw it in the credit card industry for years, with the PCI compliance. At first, it was a questionnaire. And now they do scans on the network to say, hey, you got these things in your firewall aren't right. You got to fix them. And we're seeing that across the board for almost every business. It's more so. We see a lot more of it in, compliance industries, whether it's healthcare, financial services. If you fall under, CMMC or any kind of compliance, you're going to have a much longer questionnaire.
Well, you're
the ones
dealing
we
with
see in
such
healthcare can be like 30 pages.
Wow. Sensitive information, big time. And,
oh yeah. I mean, if you're any business,
and they're targeted.
Yeah. I mean, because, it's such a liability, for you to leak one social security number, one date of birth for, one patient or something. And then that just becomes exponential if it's a large breach. So you really got to, if you're looking to get, and we tell people like, you need to have cyber insurance. And you're usually better off looking at a third party that just does cyber insurance.
Got it.
We found if you kind of compare the riders to standalone, rider on your regular liability insurance, you can usually get more protection, more complete protection with a standalone policy than you will, with just going to your regular.
That's good information. I think a lot of people don't realize that they,
and you want somebody in IT to explain to you what you're getting and what you're not getting, because a lot of them, they're going to give you, 12 pages of what they're going to cover and what they're not going to cover. And you want somebody to be able to tell you, what is the most likely thing to happen? And are you covered for the most likely thing?
And
where, where is the problem going to be that's not covered?
Or the most devastate, the thing that would devastate your business the most, making sure that's and that you have the right coverage, because a lot of them, they'll say, well, for ransomware, we're going to give you $50,000 or, for this, we're going to give you this much. And it's not, if you look at the failure rates, one of the stats that we always use that's kind of really impactful is 60% of businesses that experience a cyber attack are out of business within 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And it's not the initial attack. It's that now if you have a ransomware attack, it's not like dealing with the ransomware attack. It's now that your business doesn't operate for 2 weeks, so people look at, well, $50,000 will be fine. And it's like, well, you got to pay your employees for 2 weeks and they're not working and you're not making any money. So you're going to need more than $50,000, You really have to look
and are you really going to get all that data back that you lost?
Right.
You can even pay the ransomware and still not get everything back.
Right. And there's so many ancillary expenses, right? So now if you leaked your customer data, now you need to communicate that leak to all those customers. And then how many of those customers are you going to lose based on that leak? You know, so there's like all these things you have to consider when you're looking at what am I insured for and what am I not insured for? It's not just covering the event. You know, it's covering, you know, what are the effects of that event going to be on my business after the fact?
Even scarier now. Okay. So I think that, you know, what we kind of covered were some really good points that small business owners can do themselves, but that really, you know, if you're running a business, even, just yourself, if you have highly sensitive information, but you really need a professional in most cases. If you're running a business, it's good protection. It's your money spent well, protecting yourself in that way and protecting your customers, clients, or patients for that matter.
Sure.
Yeah. I think the value's there.
And I always tell people when you're in business, do what you're good at and let other people do what they're good at.
Yeah. I am not IT.
And I am not an accountant. So
we are big proponents of hiring the right people to do those things and focus on the things that you do best. It's really critical to, you know, you don't want to cobble through things that are that critical to your business. You know, if something can completely ruin your business, you know, whether it's, you know, not having good financial reports so you can't sell your business, or, you know, not having, you know, IT protection, or, you know, not having somebody that's, you know, dealing with whatever, you know, security inside your building, or, you know, maintaining your fleet of vehicles, like all those types of things. Like you need to find, you know, professionals to kind of deal with those things, because if you don't, it just kind of becomes exponentially worse as the business grows.
Yeah. And it can't be managed. It's harder to manage, you know, as you're growing as well. So
sure.
Well, thank you, Marc, so much for coming here and talking to us today. We got to learn a little bit about your journey and how you ended up a small business owner and the people you see and help every day. And so we thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marc.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you find this podcast helpful, then like, subscribe, and follow us on social media.